Hi, and welcome to Element 7 Concrete Artisan Training Module 4518, Resin Quartz Coating, Part 1. So an overview of the process of our resin quartz is number 1, surface prep and repair, followed by moisture vapor transmission barrier, that's what MVT stands for, followed by one broadcast, then another broadcast, then top coating. This is generally a 4 to 5 day process. So we're going to start by removing some misconceptions around resin quartz. So some people think this coating will hide bad texture in the substrate. I can put it over anything. Wrong. This coating, well, you have two broadcast coats and a top coat, so you don't have to be too careful on any one coat. It's just kind of whatever. Wrong. This coating, it's important to move as fast as possible all the time when placing epoxy. Wrong. Thicker coatings require less surface prep. It's a lot of material, that stuff sticks really good. We don't really have to worry too much. Surface prep isn't as important with the thicker coatings. That's absolutely wrong. The thicker the coating, the rougher the surface has to be in order for that thing to bond. So in this case, we're going to start off by grinding. We believe in diamond grinding because it goes parallel to the plane. That's a whole long story as to diamond grinding versus shot blasting. Shot blasting has its place, but the edges are where it's most vulnerable, and that's why we're going to focus on grinding edges really well and cutting keyways, which might be a new word for you. I think it's more important for you to understand why and how you use what you do more than use tooling number X. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to show you a handful of different tools and approaches, and you're going to be able to improvise a little bit more than just working at McDonald's and you put the pickles here and we move on. So a couple things to think about is number one, you want to use tooling that's going to gouge into the floor and make it rough. You're going to basically do the opposite of what you do when you grind concrete to polish it, where you want to have, in that case, you want to have a consistent scratch pattern, and in this case, you want to have a random scratch pattern. You want to move the machine around like you're the worst polisher ever. So one tool that you could use, in this case, it's a picture of a PCD or a polycrystalline diamond for an HTC driver. This is where it's just got things that are just going to gouge directly into the concrete, and again, you're going to want to move it quickly. Of course, anytime you're preparing concrete, you want to grind dry and bring the S36 with you. The standards for vacuums is you always test them at the shop before loading. You secure them with a ratchet strap. That thing better not move when you grab it and shake it. You want to ratchet to the frame, obviously, not to the motors. Bring extra filters, and that thing better be clean going out and clean when you put it back in. Again, there's a lot of tools that you can use. This is a PCD tool for a Husqvarna plate. We've got those that'll fit our machines also. Again, random, rough, move that thing around like crazy. You want a crazy scratch pattern. You want to create profile for that thing to lock into. Another tool that you could use would be a single post Lavina tool. You don't want to use any kind of pucks. You don't want to use copper or ceramic tooling. Those are designed to shave the concrete down and leave a consistent scratch pattern. You're trying to do the opposite. You want something that's going to cut into the concrete and make a profile for that stuff to bond to. So you're going to start by grinding the concrete first. You want to grind before you do the cracks because it's really rough on the machine to be going over chased out cracks. So after you're done grinding, you're going to chase out the cracks. And this is the one time that you want to use your 4-inch grinder instead of your 7-inch grinder because you're going to be able to turn it more easily. I've seen one of our guys just tape one of these on a stick. I thought that was brilliant because he did a really great job of staying on it and put less wear and tear on his body than, hunched over and chasing it down. So again, 20 people here, there's lots of other ideas. With the little grinders, it's probably better to use the Ermator S26. This is the 110 volt machine. The S36 is a 220 volt machine. This one's sweet because you don't have to wire into a panel. It does draw a lot of amps though, so you have to have it on its own circuit and not run anything else on that circuit. You'll pop the breaker. Again, secure with ratchet straps, bring extra filters. Thing needs to be clean when you leave the shop and clean when you put it back in the shop. The pulse back vacuum is every bit as good as that. Same deal, be secure. And again, recall from your checklist training that you can't use a 3-way or have two of these kind of vacuums on the same circuit. You can't have your grinder and one of those big vacuums on the same circuit. You'll pop the breaker and put wear on the tools. You need to run 2 separate 10 gauge lines directly from the temporary pole. Once you have those lines, those cracks chased out, you're going to use, and right now we're using Vapor Solve paste epoxy to fill those. We have mixes for creating epoxy mortar with sand. Both of those things are great. You'll use 1 container of Vapor Solve for every 150 feet of cracks. We do charge line item to fill the cracks, and so that will all be figured out on your project worksheet when you get loaded out. But I tell you that so that you can make sure that you budget your material so that you're on track to execute well on the job site. This video is from a YouTuber that was making fishing rods. He's mixing a small amount, but you kind of get the idea how thoroughly you need to mix that. When I mix paste epoxy, I'll usually use about an 8-inch by 12-inch piece of melamine and a putty knife, and I'll keep scraping it on the side and working it in. Again, like I say at the end of all the videos, the video is what it is. The real training comes with your field trainer to spend the time with you to show you physically how to do that. So you're going to fill all the cracks with paste epoxy. Next, when you do your vapor barrier, you're going to mix your entire kit for a full 2 minutes by a clock. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about clocks as we get into this, with a Jiffy mixer. There are other mixers that are okay, but it's kind of like scrambled eggs. You can scramble an egg with a spoon, not so good as a fork or a wire whisk. The right tool is going to mix that epoxy a lot better, so go out with a Jiffy mixer when you're doing that. Now what's cool is the MVT barrier, as we're buying it right now, comes in a 1-gallon kit. You're going to want to budget off 100 square feet like we had talked about in the previous modules, and you're going to put it down. This is another YouTube video. I hope I'm not plagiarizing. I'll have links to these people's things in the credits. But there's a lot of ways that you can put that stuff down. You do need to put it down with a flat trowel or a squeegee, not less than 100 square feet per gallon, so don't chintz on the moisture vapor transmission barrier. On the second day that you're on the job site, you're going to be doing your first broadcast. If there's mistakes in the MVT barrier, you're going to sand those off, and hopefully you don't have to do that because that stuff's going to be gummy, and that's not easy to do. You can do it, but you'll ruin your sandpaper instantly. You'll blow through a ton of sandpaper, so you really want to get that right. In this video, their first broadcast, they didn't use an MVT barrier. This is a company out of Poland called Bowtech that posted this video. Again, I'll link to their stuff. They look amazing. If we were in Poland, I would totally use their stuff. They'll, like I said, no moisture vapor transmission. And look at how Polish those guys look in that video. That's so cool. I would imagine in Europe they probably do a much better job with water to cement ratio and barriers under the thing. It's probably not as big of a deal. On the first broadcast, which was what that was actually filming right there, and we'll get into that a little bit more. This is where the timing and the clocks becomes a big deal. So you gotta back roll the epoxy and give it a little time to self-level before you broadcast the quartz. You got to know when to go fast and when to wait. It's kind of like concrete. Concrete, sometimes you got to get after it, and then other times you got to chill out and let that water bleed out or whatever. So you go fast when you're mixing and getting it on the floor. You want, as soon as you get those two components together, you want mix, 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 and pour out that ribbon and get it spread. But then once you get it spread, I like to use the timer on my watch and give myself a full 10 minutes for it to level out before I broadcast the quartz. Otherwise, I tend to get the quartz in too early, and that epoxy is still lumpy, and it looks bad when you put that down there. So back to our Polish friends here. Here's old boy with the two-handed trowel getting after it, and you can see that, man, he's putting that down about as fast as you could with a magic trowel and like really working it in, cutting in their edges real well, no masking, and then look at the Polish faux hawk. Just glorious. They're broadcasting to rejection, meaning that like you don't want to see any puddles when you put that stuff on there. You want to broadcast so you see all sand, but then don't get carried away because you're going to have to shovel and sand all that stuff up tomorrow. And that's the end of this particular unit. We don't want to get carried away with these videos, making them too long. So that's the end of Artisan Training 4518. ResinQuartz Part 1. As always, the real training is with your field trainer. Ask questions, seek coaching, be humble, be a pro, be as good as you can be. Thanks for watching.